The Perimeter with Adam Morrison is proudly presented by Owens Farms Piedmontese. I want to share a local secret that everyone needs to know about, Owens Farms Piedmontese. As you can tell, I'm very excited to tell you about it. But no joke, this beef from Owens Farms is some of the best I've ever tasted in my life. For over 35 years, the Owens family has bred and sold a select amount of their premier Piedmontese beef by word of mouth. And now, for the first time, is being made available to the public through our partnership. Go to ofp.farm or click the link in the show description to reserve your half or whole order of premier Piedmontese beef today. There's only a limited amount of Owens Farms Piedmontese beef available, so make sure you don't miss out.
The Perimeter with Adam Morrison is produced independently and locally in Spokane, Washington by Spokast Studios. Our city, our stories. Visit www.spokast.com to learn more about how you can start your very own podcast today. Thank you to Jinx Universe and Position Music for letting the Perimeter use the song Let's Do It Again from Jinx's album, Make It Look Good.
The Perimeter with Adam Morrison is brought to you in sponsorship with Delicious Hamburgers. Did you know Delicious Hamburgers and fries are the freshest in Spokane? Their hamburgers are never frozen, and that's because it tastes better. There's not even a freezer in the restaurant. Their fries are always made to order and never sit under a heat lamp. It's differences like this you can truly taste. Next time you're craving the freshest hamburgers and fries, head to the corner of Augusta and Division and ask for the Perimeter Combo. A triple delicious hamburger with grilled onions, pickles, and special sauce. It also comes with fries and your choice of a milkshake. Delicious. Taste the difference.
Let me introduce you to the Spokane Workers Co-op, a locally based worker-owned holding company whose mission it is to increase access to living wages, workplace democracy, and autonomy, and to create the sort of lifelong career trajectories that are increasingly uncommon for the majority of people in America. The worker owners of SWC, regardless of which business they work, are equal co-owners of the entire holding company, providing them not just direct ownership of the fruits of their own labor, but ownership in a diversified and resilient portfolio of businesses dedicated to serving Spokane and the Inland Northwest. SWC also buys traditional businesses. SWC buys traditional businesses like LLCs, partnerships, and sole proprietorships, for example, from owners who are ready to retire and who want to make sure the employees who help them build their business are taken care of after the owner leaves. Learn more at www.spokane.coop. And if you're an owner interested in talking about selling, email SWC at team@spokane.coop. That is team@spokane.coop.
Let's do it again. Let's do it again. Turn up the 10. Let's do it again. Let's do it again.
Welcome to Season 2, Episode 5 of The Perimeter, sponsored by Owens Farms Piedmontese. Another recap. Got Brendan, the producer, with me. I appreciate it, as always, coming on and trying to help me get through this recap. Let me bounce some ideas off you, questions. It was an interesting week for Gonzaga. Coming off the Baylor loss, there was, obviously some real question marks, and people were a little bit down. Obviously, it was 64-63, had a chance to win that basketball game. We talked about it at length. But I think the fervor around town, or the idea around town, was this is kind of an off week. And it's like, wait a second, like Kent State's a really good basketball team. And I talked about that in the preview of this game. And it was exactly that, like a really hard-fought, good, type of win for us. It could be a quad 1 win, probably will turn into a quad 2 win, which is still good. To give just a little background into that, when they do the NCAA part of the seeding into the Ken Palm stuff, RPIs, the old term, I guess, is they take wins within the top, I believe it's 50 or 75 as a quad 1, so on and so forth. So it goes quad 2, quad 3, quad 4. And a lot of times our conference will turn into quad 3s or quad 4s. So they're wins, but they're not great. They don't really help you. Mm-hmm. So obviously a quad 1 win helps you into seeding. they're a quad 1 team now. And what I mean by that is they're a top 75 type team, but their league will drop them down. So it'll probably turn into a quad 2. But my point is bringing this up. We knew Kent State inside the program was going to be a tough game. I compared them to what we used to be about 15 years ago. Well coached. Obviously, we're still well coached. Diamond in the rough players, maybe a little bit undersized for Power 5 or Power 5 type programs, which we are. We're not in the conference, but you get what I'm saying. Like top 10 programs, top 15 programs, and a core group that's been together and played a lot of games together. So I knew going into that game, and it's just not me saying that I knew it was going to be close, and I'm right, and you're listening to my podcast, I'm going to tell you why. I knew that this team was going to come in and give us a real challenge. We watched their tape. They should have been in the NCAA tournament last year. They had a game. I think they were 23-9 or something like that with a tough non-conference. And the night before the game, four of their starters or something like this, I'm not completely sure on the story, posted something inappropriate about the other team. So they got suspended the night before the championship game, and then they lost. So my point is they would have been in the NCAA tournament. They were favored going into their conference tournament championship game, favored probably by 10. Obviously anything can happen, but that was an NCAA tournament type team. So same guys coming back, most of them, your core group. And it was an interesting game. I thought their game plan was fantastic. They had a really good guard in Sincere Carey. I think he looks like he's 25, and he was probably 23. I mean, the way the COVID rules work now.
Oh, probably, yeah.
But he's averaging about 16, 17 a game. We did a really good job on him. I think his final line was 4 for 14. It was 4 for 15, excuse me. But we knew going into that game that he has the ability to score in bunches, really quick, crafty guard. They run like a 4-out, space the floor, dribble drive, and early we were biting on all shot fakes, and they were going by and getting to the free throw line. But that first half was just interesting because it was a closer game, and the crowd was wasn't pedestrian, but they weren't exact. They were kind of like, what, Kent State? We should be up by 20 by now. You know what I'm saying? And we just knew it was going to be a tough game. And then going into the second half, it was funny because Kelly Olynyk, we'll talk about it in a second here, had his jersey retirement, or it's not retirement. I don't know how to describe it, but that's the only way. Put you up in the rafters, but they don't.
The number's not retired. Right.
Yeah, the number's not retired, and that's a whole nother discussion. It doesn't matter. Like, I've had people in the past, well, are you mad somebody's wearing number 3? Like, I don't care. No, he's wearing number 3. And then, like, why would that be an issue? And then also, like, so Andrew Nemhard didn't deserve to wear number 3 last year. You know what I'm saying? Like, and then you get into, it goes into, like, well, let's say you have a 5-star recruit. It's like, I want to wear number 3. And you're going to tell him he can't come to the university because I wore it. You know what I'm saying? So, like, getting your name put in the rafters is 99.99 repeating fine. You get what I'm saying? So, like, the 0.1% that bothers, it doesn't bother the guys anyway.
Yeah.
So when we were having our interview, we had him during the game. Kent State went on a run and got up about 6 with like 8 minutes to go. So it was interesting to see how our guys reacted to that. They made plays down the stretch, scored the last 11 points to win by 7, of that ball game. But I always talk about, obviously wins are great, but it's the type of wins. And what I mean by that's not, the quad 1 and the Ken Palm stuff matters, but I'm talking about, did you have to make plays down the stretch? Did your guys get put in positions where they were under duress, or there was legitimate, stress on making plays? Julian made a big-time 3 when we were down 4 off a pin-down action on the right side with a hand in his face. Had a good game, 14 points, but 4 for 8 from the field, 3 or 5 from downtown. But big time shot is my point. And then we were down. We were up 1, and Malachi Smith, who played terrible that game, except for this one play, ends up 1 of 5, but gets an offensive rebound on a free throw and 1, kind of put the game to bed. But what my point is those type of games later in March, February, March, matter more than the 15-point win or whatever. Like, you had to make plays, even though, quote unquote, you're supposed to beat this team by 12 or whatever the line was going into that game. Those matter the most. So I was thoroughly impressed with how our guys handled it, how they bounced back from the Baylor game, and playing hard and coming up short in that game, and then having a true test at home, and especially, like I said, with not the crowd was bad, but there wasn't the, oh my God, this team, we need to kind of get behind these guys tonight, right? You know what I'm saying? So very impressive win. I was happy, obviously, for the club. Like I said, I'm happy that they had to be put in situations to make plays and come out on top. But those things matter down the stretch, and they help you long term. Like I said, it might turn into a quad 1 win, probably going to be a quad 2, but that still matters on your resume. So that's a good, solid college basketball win for this program. Kent State, we heard a story, and I think it's true. We were talking to the radio guy, and I think he said that they called 65 odd schools to play them because, like I said, 15 years ago, they're like us. We're like, hey, man, we got to go out. They're in the MAC, Mid-American Conference or Mid-Atlantic Conference. I don't know which one it is. Mid-American, probably. Is that what it is?
I think it is Mid-American. Yeah.
Mid-American. But they understand, hey, their coach goes like, I have a legitimate team that can get to the second weekend or make a run in the NCAA tournament, but I gotta get myself a backup just in case something haywire goes and we don't win our conference tournament. Maybe I can sneak in as a 12 seed with a bid, so I got to go play people and try to beat. And they said they called 65 schools, and Gonzaga and one other were the only ones that took them. So my point is like, they may not be a brand for college basketball or jump out at you, but like other coaches and other conferences understand that. It's like, I don't want to play those guys. You know what I'm saying? Because you go into that game like, you should beat Kent State. Like, what are you talking about? But like, like, hey, they got 4-year guys. They had 4 guys on their team that played over 100 college basketball games. You know
oh my gosh, really?
Yeah.
They
like,
were old.
Old and experienced, and they played together, and they had a chip. It's like I said, it was us 15 years ago where, a program that's ascending, probably, their program wasn't where we were 15 years ago, but that style of team where, like I said, diamonds in the rough, guys that are good players that kind of got overlooked, want to go play these big time programs. So I thought it was pretty neat that Coach Few took that game. I don't know, a lot of people don't see that backstory on some of those, how scheduling works and how you have to, kind of position yourself to get a better seed. Doesn't mean you hide from people, and that's not what I'm inferring, but also you can't go play Murderers Row every single year. And a lot of it has to do with what you got, blah, blah, blah. Where are you playing? What's, you know what I'm saying? So for him to take that game, even though it was at our place, was pretty cool. And like I said, it's going to work out to our benefit, I think, down the road in February, March, to be able to, look back on that and be like, hey, in this situation, you've knocked down big shots. Malachi, you got a big time rebound. Julian, obviously, he's had big moments for us, but you made, a big time 3 when we're down 4 on a design pin down. And it was kind of a bad shot in theory, but if they're running that play for you, take that shot, and he made it. So I was impressed with how our guys play. Obviously, Drew Timme had a big game in that, 29 and 17 rebounds, career high, 11 and 16. So yeah, it was one of those where, like I said, it kind of got grindy a little bit. We shot it poorly from 3, 6 of 18, only 45% from the field. So again, I keep harping on, but when we see the growth of this team, especially on the perimeter, like the younger guys on the perimeter, you want to see, can you play bad, quote unquote, or analytically and still get wins? Baylor was close, played terrible, both teams. We talked about that at length of how poorly both teams shot, but we were right in that game. Same thing with Kent State. 45% is not terrible, but it's not, we're at 51 as a team usually, as a mean. It's nice to see that guys make plays down the stretch. And then Hunter Silas was fantastic in that game. He took 4 charges. He took 2 late on that sincere carry, their best player. So again, that's what I'm looking for when I'm looking at this club who's having a good season so far. It's not a down talk on them. It's, hey, at certain points you have to look for growth and what will help you down the stretch, and it's better than having that right away and then a slow decline. We're trending in the right direction, especially on the perimeter. Obviously, Drew's fantastic. Anton's had big games, but we needed a game like that, especially at home where it's not, I mean, this episode comes out on Tuesday. We were playing Northern Illinois tonight, and they lost by 40 to Idaho. So I don't even want to even break down that team. I think we wasted everybody's time. And that's a turn the podcast off and go to the next one type of deal. So,
but that's an example of like the type of games that's an example of like what traditional Gonzaga fans might have thought Kent State is like a Northern Illinois if they didn't know anything about Kent State.
Yes, no, exactly. I mean, we've had games like that obviously in the past, and again, it goes into how the seating, how you prepare yourself for seating, how you schedule yourself, how you space out tougher games and whatnot. But I think the idea around town was, well, it's Kent State. It's a nice way for them to get off the snide against Baylor. And it's like on the broadcast, we were like, this is, like, we kept saying it in pregame, like, this is a really tough game. In the net rankings, they first came out the night of that game. Kent State was 25, Gonzaga was 29.
Oh, wow.
So that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Like, there's more than just what your program looks like, what your record is, blah, blah, blah. So again, I can't stress enough how great that game was for us. And like I said, guys to make plays down the stretch, get pushed, play against really good players. That Thomas kid was really good for them. Sincere Carey was good. Well coached, like I said, 100+ games for 4 of their guys, blah, blah, blah. So I was pleased with that win.
Yeah. I thought it was really nice to see them being down 6 with like 4 minutes left to like, that's a tournament style win, and it is.
It's a second game, or like that's a first or second game of the first weekend type win where like you're playing a Boise State or somebody of that's like not in a terrible conference but in a smaller conference, but they got like seniors and juniors and guys that are ready, and like you might be down 6 with 4 minutes to go and you got to make plays and you can't get tight. That team will probably get, if they make it, they'll probably be like a 12 to 14 seed. That nobody wants to play a team like that.
Right.
That's just scary. Yeah. I mean, it just is like, you end up getting a 3 seed and then you're like, yay. And then you see Kent State and you're like, oh my God.
No.
And then your fans are like, oh, we're going to get a win. It's like, hold on. So again, a fantastic win for us. Obviously it was a must win. I mean, we were, 5-3 at the time. It would have been 5-4 if we lost, and the whole thing everybody would have gone nuts, lost their mind. But it ended up getting to 6-3. So it was a really good win, and it was a nice way to segue into UW game. But I'm going to talk about Kelly Olynyk getting his number retired. So I'm going to phrase it. Fantastic, accomplishment for him. Obviously, I had mine done. I think it's 2 years ago now, or it was right before COVID. So whenever that fucking was, 3 years ago.
I think it was 20. Wasn't it in 2020? Right in February.
Yeah, it was before
everything happened.
Yeah, before everything happened. But it was cool to see him. He obviously had a break from his schedule in the NBA with Utah, and obviously that's a short flight. I was just happy for him. Well deserved. Kind of elevated that program to get to the number 1 seed. It was the first time they had a number 1 seed, number 1 ranking. He was obviously the leader of that team, had his interesting story. I'll get him on the podcast down the road when he has time. He has a fantastic story. Everybody's heard about the redshirt year, but there's a lot that goes into it. Basically a perfect example of betting on yourself, not listening to the voices, the outside voices that you should transfer, you're getting fucked, blah, blah, blah. I mean, that's what he was getting told. And he said, well, actually, I'm going to just take a year off. And that pissed off the coaching staff too. But he made like a bold choice to be like, hey, I'm going to actually improve myself as a player. And on the podcast, I'll explain. But going into that year, I was I think I was year 3 removed from my ACL, and that's when I finally started really feeling like right. We played 1-on-1, 2-on-2, 3-on-3 up in the day court in Gonzaga all summer long. So it was kind of cool. I was always telling people, I'm like, Kelly Olynyk, like, he doesn't even look the same, you know, and what, you know what I'm saying? Like around town, I was like, oh yeah, I'm sure he's fine. You're sure you're just saying that because your buddy, like in the back of their mind, was like, no, Kelly is a pro now. You know what I'm saying? Like that summer, and we talked about it a little bit on the interview on the broadcast, but it'll be good when we get him on the show because he'll talk about that year and then, you know, obviously his life at Gonzaga and then coming from Canada, blah, blah, blah. But it was good to see him, well-deserved. I think Dan Dickau's next. We'll get him on the show and talk about that. You know, the biggest thing when you do those type of, you know, inductions or, you know, award ceremonies, however you want to describe it, it's like, all right, how do I not fuck up this speech and how do I not leave anybody out? And that's how, and I talked to him a little bit about that and he's like, yeah, dude, I'm so glad it's over. I'm like, yeah, it's harder than it looks. And that's for any public speaking, you know what I mean? But people understand it's like, shit, man, like I know I'm going to leave somebody out or I'm going to cuss or I'm going to, you know, go too long, blah, blah, blah. So once you're done with it, it's like, that's the bigger relief than almost the ward, I guess, or like the more excitement part of it. But so anyway, we'll get Kelly on. It'll be good. It was nice to see him. Obviously, well-deserved. I don't know who else they're going to do. Obviously, Dan this year. Then I'll be interested to see. We've talked about it on season 1 with Tom Hudson, who qualifies for that, you know, honor, because there's a lot of really good players at Gonzaga. You know, it's a weird deal because there's a lot of guys that made impacts in 1 year. There's guys 2 years. There's guys that did it 4, but then their numbers aren't as good. You know, if you break it down, and then it's a weird. And like I said it on the episode. I'm like, I'm glad I was first, and I just don't have to fucking deal with it. You know, I'm just like, okay, thanks, man. And then I've made my input on certain guys, but you know, it's not my decision. My input's probably lightly taken. It's taken, but it's not as heavy as other people that's been around the program for 30 years. So I get that. That's not what I'm saying, but it'll be interesting to see who makes that cut and who doesn't, because getting into the numbers aspect is really hard because, like I said, there's some guys that have amazing numbers, but then, you know, the impact wasn't as big, and then it's vice versa. Like Ronny Turioff is the perfect example. I've always said his numbers should be, there's no pushback, but also, well, look at his numbers. And I'm like, well, okay, his numbers are solid, but he also played in the league for 10 years, and he was the first like big time international to take a flyer and come over. You know what I'm saying? So like that's the impact. Okay, if he doesn't do that, do we get Domus? Do we get fucking Shimmick? I mean, you just go down the line of all the international bigs.
Killian.
Yeah. I mean, you just go down the line. Yeah. No, probably not. You know what I mean? So, and that's Tommy's first big recruit. So then that sets Tommy up to be a recruiter. You know what I'm saying? So
I was going to ask about, there was a humongous gap between John Stockton and your jersey getting retired. His was retired in 2004. You were in 2020, and now we have our first one after you, which was only 2 years. Is this going to be kind of like a revolving door of this? Because like there's only so much space up there too. They're going to have to make stuff smaller if they're going to do it like that.
Yeah, no, I think that's part of the discussion that at least I've had or have been discussed with me is, you don't want to put everybody up there. Yeah. And that sounds selfish, but it's true. You want to make it a club, right? And but then also like you can leave out a lot of guys that deserve it. So it's hard. Yeah. I know at like North Carolina is what they do. Obviously it's a whole different type of program with all the championships and history and all time greats of just basketball period. If you win a championship, they put your jerseys up there, but you can still wear those numbers. But then I think if you're an All-American, a first-team All-American, the same thing happens, but that number can still be worn. But then they retire only a few, like Jordan's, probably James Worthy, I think Phil Ford. I mean, I'm sure I'm leaving out, but like it's like very like you have to be one of the all-time greats of hoop in general, where you can't wear that number. So like, I think that's kind of maybe the strategy that Gonzaga maybe has to get to. Like, if you're first team All-American, you get up there, blah blah blah. But it's a weird dynamic. And like I said, I'm glad I just got mine out of the way, because it's hard. But anyway, it was nice to see Kelly. We'll get him on. He's obviously a cool guy. He's got interesting stories. We got a relationship that's, we didn't play together, but at Gonzaga, usually there's the older guys that were before you come back and train when they're pros. And so I feel like that group is kind of my group too. And he feels similar with some of the younger guys like Rui and BC. Like, he came back and showed him the ropes. So like, you kind of feel like you're in two different groups, which is kind of cool. And that's like a Gonzaga thing. Not a lot of programs like have guys coming back, but he talked about that on the broadcast. Was like, you talk to other guys in the leagues, like, do you ever go back to your school? And they're like, fuck no. Like, what are you talking about? He's like, I go back. And he's like, come back. I come back for 2 weeks every summer, at least play, say what up to everybody, but like, get right, hoop. Yeah. And then you can, see the guys that are going to be next and be like, hey man, this is what you got to, this is how you got to get in shape. Obviously they know that, but it's nice to hear it from the guy that's doing it. So anyway, we'll get Kelly on, but it was a cool experience to have his jersey done. And, it was weird doing an interview during a game too, and having Huddy trying to call the game is funny. And that's when Kent State made their run.
That's when Kent State made the run.
It's like, right. We'll be back. Gonzaga down 6. After after the break. Is if you're listening, like, what the fuck just happened? We're telling stories, and I'm like, fuck the game. Who cares? Let's talk to Kelly. I don't give a shit. But anyway, so yeah, going into UW, like we talked about how that rivalry is. I think it's special for Washington sports. I wish it would get better, and not just for Gonzaga to always win, but I would just wish UW would get to the program to where it used to be, where they're landing all those high level recruits and just being more solid. I think it'd be better for Seattle sports too in general. Obviously, the Seahawks are there, and the Mariners had a fantastic season, but they're dying for basketball. I think an NBA franchise is going to go there eventually. It makes sense not to, but I really think the next one's going to go to Vegas. I think the league's probably like, look at the Raiders, like, this is a layup now. Vegas gets shit done. You don't have to deal with a city council. It's going to be like, no, you can't.
Right.
They just fucking, you got your permits? Yep. You know what I'm saying? Like, they get shit done. Like, here's a team. It's not 5 years. You'll have the team there in 2, and the stadium will be done, and it'll be state of the art. Come on in, no taxes, blah blah blah. It's Nevada, like, that's what they do. Yeah. But like I said, the Heck Ed is a fantastic arena. I think they're decent this year. They were coming in the game 7-2, but they had 2 guys that were out. 2 major players that played major minutes. That one guy looked like he was out for the season. He was in a knee brace, and the other kid was 4 to 6 weeks, high ankle sprain. So it was interesting facing that team with that, kind of depleted roster, or depleted in the sense of 2 major guys, especially at the big position. One of the kids was, their 7-footer or 6'11" kid that was a good player. His name slipped in my mind, but a good player that would have been a better matchup for them inside against Timmy. But, a team that runs that 2-3 zone. Hopkins is a disciple of Jim Boeheim out of Syracuse. So you always play the 2-3 zone, and it's different than your standard 2-3 zone. They space their 2 bottom wings all the way up about free throw line and extended. And so there's gaps in it, and they're trying to get you to, take deep threes, and then they try to force everything kind of to the middle from the wing. It's different. But the theory is, like, why bury your 2 bottom guys in kind of a dead zone, which is true. So then your guards don't have to shift as much. From a coaching aspect, it makes sense at, how do I say this? I think it works better. Those type of defenses work better at like high school and AAU levels when the shooting is not a proficient and then the passing is not a proficient. But the counter to that, it's like, well, Jim Boeheim's obviously had a lot of success, won an NCAA tournament, but it's also like, well, when he did run that zone, they had fucking Carmelo Anthony and Keem Warwick. That's like 7-foot wingspans. That's a big difference than 6'8" wingspans. You know what I'm saying? Like, so they're trying to get you messed up with length. But the way they started the game, both teams shot it poorly. Gonzaga started 1 for 10 from the field. Didn't look very hot, was taking bad shots, kind of forcing it in transition. They had three charges early. Anton had 2. One was bad, one was legit. Felt bad for him as he got yanked early and had to sit the bench. But oddly enough, Efton Reed made a great impact on the game. He's kind of been buried in the rotation. Ben Gregg's taken that third big minutes. It's usually about 12 to 16 a night. Gonzaga always plays 3 bigs. It's kind of how they do it. I like to do it. It's a different level, but I like to do it in the AU, like girls basketball. Like 3 of them play kind of the same, but you can rotate them. And a lot of bigger programs do that, and it kind of keeps everybody happy, but also like you can avoid foul trouble, blah, blah, blah. It just makes you more dynamic, especially defensively. But Efton Reed got a call, and first play got a jump hook in the lane, and then his second field goal, he got an offensive rebound from the weak side and kind of got everybody going. And on that first jump hook, it was a timeout. We went into a media timeout. And you can always tell when a guy's well-liked in the locker room and it's not going his way, but everybody tries to pick him up and stay with it. And just the reaction that the bench gave him when he got, like the players, when he got to the huddle was cool to see.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It's like, hey man, you have that ability, stay with it, way to have your name called and be ready to go. That's hard to do when you're like completely out of the rotation. They're like, go in, make a play. Like it's hard. Yeah.
And he had the vibe of the kennel was amazing when he made that first hook and then like got the rebound at the other end of the court, and it was just you could just tell like there was a really good like momentum behind him. Yeah, it was nice to see.
Well, it got, like I said, it got everybody going. We were 1 for 10 to start, and then he goes 2 for 3 real quick in a 3-minute stretch, but it's just like, okay, and, kind of slowed everybody down. So Gonzaga did a good job of weathering that deal. We finally figured the zone out. It's pretty simple, in my opinion, to beat because it's so stretched out. You put somebody at the high post, you put somebody kind of a rover on the baseline side, but you tell them to stop at like they call it the dunker spot now, but short corner. So like 12 to 15 feet on the baseline. And then you got to make penetrating passes, kills the zone. And our guys did that. Julian was getting in those spots. Obviously, Drew and Anton, but then you can hit the low, and then you get 12-foot like little shot put shots on the baseline. And if you rep them, you can make those, and those turn into high percentage shots. You always put a skill guy in the middle. So I thought our guys did a good job of, kind of weathering it. Anton played great, 31 minutes, 4 or 5. Drew did his thing, 22 and 7. Julian had a big game, 7 of 14, 18 points. I thought Nolan did okay, 3 of 6. But it was nice to see, us kind of get out of that deal. And then it just looked like, after that first thrust, UW just looked kind of gassed. And I said that it was the second media timeout. I was like, that looks like they punched themselves out already, even though the game was closer than that. I didn't feel threatened by them. I mean, it ended up being a 17-point win, but I didn't feel like at any point of the game that they could make a run and make it nervous for us. Our guys kind of coasted the rest of the game, but it was obviously good that Gonzaga, I think it's 13 straight that we beat them, if my memory serves. Last one we lost was my last year, which is funny. But I think, or we're 13 and 1 in that span.
We're 13 and 1 in that span.
Yeah. So yeah, it'd be interesting if that I think this was the last game of the deal. So what I'm getting to is I'm curious if that rivalry will be renewed, and I hope it does. But I hope UW gets a little bit more back on track. I mean, they're not terrible. I think they can make a run in the Pac-12 to maybe get an NCAA tournament win, but they're 7-3, but they didn't really play anybody.
Right.
They have a good win against St. Mary's in overtimes, but they got to pray that St. Mary's is good this year. They're solid, but you know what I mean? You got to hope that they are an NCAA tournament team, but it's one of those deals where I just don't know if they're going to have enough in the tank.
But when you say like you hope the rivalry continues, like I feel like when you talk about this whole Ken Palm thing, like it's a no-brainer for them to want to keep on playing us if they want to keep on getting the.
I think it's bad for for their brand or the way they view themselves that they keep getting, kind of mollywopped.
Yeah.
Against Gonzaga. I mean, the last time they played us at home, we had to make a jumper. Rui made one in 2019, but that team went to the NCAA tournament, UW's team, so they were good. Again, it goes back to that point. Also, I was speaking on earlier about scheduling when we were talking about Kent State. Obviously Coach Hopkins is, self-preservation is natural. So like, do you want to put Gonzaga on your schedule and have your fan base get pissed off every time you get blasted by us? You know what I mean?
Right.
And you can avoid that. But also, you're right. It's like, if you can get that win, that's a pretty big win. And then in theory, that should help you in recruiting if there's ever a Seattle-based, kid or in that area, which there usually is. I mean, Nolan Hickman's from Seattle, and he didn't even go to UW. And he was going to go to Kentucky. Then obviously chose Gonzaga. I talked about at the last, the last episode about how many guys from UW that didn't go to UW, or from Seattle, that didn't go to UW. I mean, the list is crazy on top 50 type players. I mean, Ben Caro was the number one recruit from Seattle. Mom played there and didn't go there. You know what I'm saying? And like that, and he knew he was going to only be there for 1 year, 6 months, really, to be honest. Like, you go for 6 months and then you can just second semester and be like, we'll see you guys. I mean, literally, that's what it's turned into.
Right.
So again, when I say this, it's never to bash UW or the fan base. I want Seattle basketball to be back. I want that program to ascend. I think the rivalry is great. It's East versus West, all that stuff. Spokane versus Seattle. It's all that stuff's cool. It's great storylines. Good for the game. It's cool when Seattle basketball's rocking because they love hoops over there, and it's fun. That's why Jamal Crawford has such a great following when he does his pro-ams. I mean, those pro-ams are crazy, and it's semi-pro basketball, right? And they fucking sell out and they go nuts because they're just starving for good basketball. It's a hoops culture. So again, I hope they can get back on track. If it doesn't work out with Hopkins, I'm already starting to now. Brandon Roy needs an opportunity to coach. I think he would be a great candidate, even if he's not familiar with the landscape of college basketball. You bring him in and then you hire assistants that are, and get him. He'll learn it eventually, but get him in the door so he can get those type of players, and then have everybody else do all the other stuff, and then he'll learn. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, if that's ever, he's never. It's like, who cares? Bring him in. He understands. He's obviously won at the high school level. He understands the local, dynamic of being from Seattle. Not leaving, wanting to play at home, having that pride. Blah blah blah. Like, you need a guy that will keep those kids in town and get back to where they were when he was playing there. But anyway, it was a good week for Gonzaga. It really was. I mean, obviously we got Alabama coming up, Northern Illinois, like I said, Monday, but it'll be yesterday for the people listening. We're going to win. I don't care. I'm not going to talk about them. Alabama's going to be a big game coming up. Ranked 4th in the country, kicked the shit out of us at the battle in Seattle last year. I mean, it was over at halftime.
Yeah.
I mean, then theoretically, it looked like it. It was bad.
Yeah.
And Climate Pledge Arena was fantastic. Everybody's excited about it. Then it was just like a dull pin drop in that arena. Everybody's like, "What the fuck is happening?" And I was like, I was like, "Wow!" Like, we look terrible. So it's going to be a chance for us. I think the last chance to get a marquee win. Obviously, we have Michigan State's a really good win. Like I said, Kent State's not a marquee, but it's going to be a good win. And then obviously Kentucky, but there's still a lot of season left on how those teams will finish up. This is an opportunity for us, that for a team that'll finish, should win the SEC. If you can win that game, it'll give us a great opportunity to get a better seed. So big week coming up. Obviously, a lot of their guys are still back, well coached. They punked us last year, so I think it's going to be on our guys' mind to go down there and try to get a win. So I'm interested to see how we react to that type of game. Obviously, it's not a must-win in a sense, but it's an opportunity to really put an earmark on your resume to go, okay, if we finish out the WCC, maybe have one or two bumps in the road, but that's natural, and then win the conference tournament. Like, what type of seeding are we look? If you have that win, it's going to obviously probably move you up a couple slots assuming that Alabama, wins the SEC or finishes second, blah, blah, blah. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it's going to be interesting. I'm looking forward to it.
Alabama this year has beaten 2 number ones. The first team, I don't know if this is like the real like stat, but they say it's the first time it's happened in NCAA history where a team's beat 2 number 1 seeds before the break, before Christmas, that. I was like, weird stat, but they're playing tough.
Yeah.
So
no, they my memory serves last year. I've watched them a little bit this year. As they played space the floor, kind of get up in you, can shoot streaky, play kind of crazy, but they believe in their guards. They play fast, play downhill. So it'll be interesting from a perimeter standpoint. Like, how can we match that with, Julian Strother, obviously Nolan Hickman, Rasheer Bolton's got to play better. Has had good stretches this year, but kind of struggling from the field right now. Malachi Smith's got to play better off the bench. Again, same thing. He's had good stretches, but it's got to be more. When I say that, it's consistency. And it's not like you have to light the world on fire every time you step on the floor, but also, you can't have the 1 for 6s, 1 for 7s. You know what I'm saying? So it's got to be more solid. Or if you're out there, you got to do what Hunter Silas is doing. It's not great from the field, but all right, took 2 charges, got 3 deflections, tip dunk, then you really made an improvement on the game. So it's going to be interesting from a perimeter standpoint how our guys do. And obviously for Drew's got to play good. Drew's played great all season. I get aside from the Baylor game, but I think their game plan was really good against him. So I kind of always give guys, leeway if they don't have like a magical night every single night. Like it's hard to do. It really is. You can have an off game, or you can have a game where they just game plan well against you and take you away, and you don't lose your mind, but you still play team basketball, and you look up and you're like, I had 10 points or whatever. It's like, okay, it's happened. So yeah, this Alabama game coming up is going to be a great test for us. Obviously it's down there, so we're not going to have the crowd on our side, but I used to like road games. I think this group has a chance to kind of, reset themselves from the Texas true road game. You know what I'm saying? So it's going to be good. And like I said, if we can get that win, it'd be huge for us.
Is it on their home court?
I think so.
And it's in Birmingham.
It's in Birmingham, so I assume so. Maybe it's in their local arena, but it's a home. It's like playing in Spokane.
Yeah, right.
It's no different, even if it isn't. But it's crazy how good their basketball program's been. I mean, in the last 3-4 years, it's like obviously that's a football school, and all of a sudden, like, hey, look at us, we got basketball too, and you know what I mean? And like, good for them, because it's hard to carve out. Your kind of niche in a community that's obviously 100% football, but then it's also nice to be like, hey, obviously the resources here, and if we're good, like you got to at least give us some too. And I'm sure he's got everything he needs, and it's SEC, like they want to win in everything.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So tough test for us. Excited for our guys to get a chance to have a, kind of get back game from last year.
Yeah. I was looking at the box score from last year, and they shot so many threes against us.
Yeah.
They got 13 threes, but they shot 34 times.
Yeah. No, it's space the floor, and we'll throw it ahead. And if a guy's open on the first side, like fucking shoot it. It's a different style, and it's, people's, well, you can't win like that. Well, if you get hot, you can. And it's hard defensively, because you got to be on, usually defensively, like if I'm guarding a guy in the wing and he's getting the first entry pass, like, I probably know he's not going to shoot it, and I probably know he's not going to drive and try to score. Like most teams, like you got to make your key pass, so they call it the second one, key pass into the offense. Okay, so good luck, But like a team like that's like ultimate green light. Like anything can happen. So it'd be interesting to see how if we change our coverages on the perimeter. But again, like I said, it's a wonderful opportunity for us to get a signature win to help us down the stretch.
Yeah, I feel like we kind of need one, considering
we do.
With the losses we've had. So
yeah, no, I totally agree. It's never a must-win situation, but for seeding, it'd be a really good one.
Yeah, I mean, it could be the difference between getting a
8 to like a 4.
Yeah,
really. I mean, that stuff's big, and obviously you don't want to get 8 9s. Those are tough. Not that you can't make a run, and not that our guys. That's not what I'm saying, but like nobody ever wants to play the 1 seed in the second round,
Right.
Theoretically, 99% of the time, so it really matters when you get into the 7s and belows and then 7s and above. Like I've always said, like you'd rather be like a 13 or a 12 than an 8 or 9 every day of the week.
Yeah, because you get to play that. Is it because you play a lower seed in the next game, right? Than playing a 1.
Yeah, and then obviously, like usually that 5 seed or 4 seed is a good team from a bigger conference, but that's like finished like mid in their conference. So like obviously they're beatable. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it's usually one of those teams that's obviously good, but I don't know. Like I've always wondered why people would complain when they're getting like a like I said, like a 13 or 12 seed. It's like, dude, that's actually not bad. And then like, if you win, you're going to play another team in that similar area. And we see it all the time, 12-5, 13-4s. They're not really, they're upsets, but not really in my book. You know what I'm saying? They're usually teams that are pretty close on the Ken Palms and strength of schedule, all that stuff. It's just usually one's from a bigger conference, the higher seed or the lower seed, and then one's from a smaller conference, but a really good basketball team like Kent State. So it's interesting when you break that all down.
For sure.
You got any listener questions?
I do. The first question comes from Nathan Llewellyn. And this is a pretty generic question, and I think we all kind of have our answer to this. But in your opinion, is Few a Gonzaga lifer? Do you think he? Yeah. Like there's.
Why would he leave now?
Why would he leave now?
Yeah, I don't see. No. And that's not even like I have inside information or anything like that. It's like, well, why would you want to go rebuild or whatever? It just wouldn't make sense. He's got his kids. I mean, like his daughter. My daughter and his daughter just played in a GSL game the other night. You know what I'm saying? So like, why, hey, sweetheart, we got to go. And then he's got a younger one that's about to be in high school probably in 2 years, if my memory serves. So like, why?
He has a pretty cush job here in Gonzaga and Spokane.
He's got one of the best college jobs in the country. You win every year. The community likes you, loves you. You know what I'm saying? Like there's no ill will. There's no whatever, you know what I'm saying? So and then also like you get paid great for the area. He could get paid more somewhere else, but money versus happiness, that's always the great discussion. And then like he has a lot of pull at that university, and it's not like a pull in like a bad way, but it's like he has a lot of pull. So like, why would you redo that? And fan base, blah blah blah. It's like I could never see it. There's not even one job that would come to mind that I could see him leaving for. Maybe I even thought like Duke for a second. I was like, well, why would he move across the country? Yeah. So then, like I'm literally thinking like, what job? I don't think he cares about like legacy as far as like let's say like UCLA opened up. It's like I don't think he would care about John Wooden coach here. You know what I'm saying? Kentucky, no. You know what I'm saying? I don't see it. I would have said that 10 years ago too, when he was always getting floated for like when Oregon was coming up. Before that, he was always getting floated for that. And I was always like, so you want to go there, and if you don't win, you're back to square one and you're out in 3 years. You know what I'm saying? Like here, like you're gonna win. You built that culture and you built the recruiting pipeline. You get paid enough. And like I said, he could get paid more at a state school. Let's just be honest. But also, he's not rubbing two nickels together here. You know what I'm saying? So like, and that's just the truth. Like that's not even. He's my friend, and it's not even like a jab. It's just like he's paid well. Yeah. But he's also like knows it's well for this area, if that makes sense. It'd be more somewhere else, but who cares? And
I mean, I think it's been well documented. He loves his outdoors stuff, though. We live very close to all the things he wants to do when he's not playing, when he's not coaching.
Yeah, so. I mean, he just built a fucking complex out of one of the lakes here. I don't even say it because it's not. I don't want to. But like he has that. Blah blah blah. Yeah. When I mean complex, so like he's built a cabin, but it's nice. Blah blah blah.
But and then also like I don't know how many more years he has to coach here, but like he's on track to be one of the winningest NCAA coaches of all time.
Oh yeah, exactly. Yeah, and then to be able to do that at one place is pretty special too.
Yeah.
Like a lot of guys don't even get that opportunity. So yeah, like I just don't. It's a great question. It's a legitimate one. It really is. But I every scenario I go through in my head, it just doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
It just doesn't. So.
Got a question from, I didn't put their name down, but someone asked why Few is not playing deep bench guys at the end of blowouts. I think this came after the UW win, after being, we won it by 17. And you said something at the end of the broadcast, like saying, if they're going to play, we're going to play.
Yep.
Like, what does that mean exactly?
So a lot of times people assume, and it's based on, like high school basketball or what you did in AAU. And I don't want to take this wrong, or sound the wrong way, but like if you're going to leave your main guys in and still play, I'm going to leave my main guys in. I don't give a fuck what the score is.
Gotcha.
And that's kind of the unwritten rule in high level basketball, and other coaches don't view it as a slight. Like, you're running the score up. Like, well, if your main guys are in, I'm not going to let you. We're up 17 and get it down to 9, and then we go fuck, and then that matters for seeding and shit. It does.
Yeah.
Okay. So a lot of times I've been asked that too, where people are like for example, when we played Portland with the new coach Shantae Liggins a few years ago, we were up 25. He kept pressing and kept his guys in. Few he kept Chet, and people ask me like, why would he do that? I'm like, fuck, you're trying to, so he can go and, when our walk-ons get in, he can go trap him and steal the ball from him and get 8 points back and look like he only lost by 17 or 15 and was closer than that. I'm like, fuck that. So that's why guys do it. I've always had a rule too, like at the end of game, let's say I go down to dribble it out. And a lot of times that's what you should do, especially under the shot clock. But if you're trying to steal it from me, he does it, but I've done it at the levels I've coached. Like, play the last possession.
Yeah.
And continue to play. And it's some people that rubs them wrong, but it's like, well, if you're going to play, I can't tell my guys to go half speed. So if Coach Hopkins took his guys out, I guarantee Coach Few would have took them out right away.
I see.
So that's the measuring stick. When you're watching the game, for the answer to the question is, if their main guys are still in, my main guys are still in. You'll see it in the NBA all the time, or even football. Like, if you pull your quarterback, I might pull mine. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's kind of the signal, like, all right, I'm officially done.
Yeah.
Pull your guys, and then they'll do it. But if you don't, I don't know you this. And I've always heard this too, like at the end of games when people get pissed off, like somebody dunks it or like, hypes up the crowd. I've always been told, don't get your ass kicked, then you don't get put in that position. And it's true.
Yeah.
People are like, that's showboating. It's like, well, don't get beat by fucking 30 and let them do that. Then, and it prevents all the, you guys are running it up. It's like, well, don't get your ass kicked then. There's exceptions to the rule.
There are, yeah.
But in higher level college basketball, NBA, not high school, and that's not a knock. Like, if you keep your guys in, I'm keeping my guys in. I don't give a shit.
Yeah. Well, the whole idea that it better seating, if you, depending on score, like, makes sense too. Like,
it does.
Like, we're not going to just turn over to.
Well, how many times have we watched a Gonzaga game, and this is like in the last couple years, and there's been some big fucking lines. Anybody that bets understands this. And they've been 35, and Vegas has been be at 32.
Yeah.
And they put in the walk-ons and with 3 minutes to go, and God bless those kids, and it's not a knock, but it goes to fucking 27 like that. You get what I'm saying? And so, like, the point is, like, if you put those guys in against their main guys, you can lose 10 points really fast.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. And it's not like, what's the difference between winning by 42 or 32 and 22? It's like, well, it matters in certain aspects. Like, let's say we only beat you by 18, but it should have been 30, and you end up having a shit season after the team that you beat. Then it looks like, well, you barely beat those guys, or it was kind of a game. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, not everybody like the guys making the seeds don't watch every fucking game.
Yeah. All they see is a box score.
Box score.
Yeah.
Exactly. So that's where it comes from. I know it's a long-winded answer, but it's multi-layered.
Yeah, I think it gives me some insight. I've never considered that.
Yeah.
Even like when you said that on the broadcast, I was just like, oh, well, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I got one personal question. It's a softball. Someone asked, we see your shirts, your hoodies, you got Madonna, Tupac, Rage. Is there any type of genre of music you don't listen to?
Country.
No country.
Actually, I listen to like 90s and 80s country. I can handle it. But
Okay.
I hate new country. I think it's pop music.
Yeah.
And I like just like Madonna. I like it's pop music that's pretending to be country. That's like. And again, I hate when people say this about certain genres that I like. It's like, but to me, it sounds all the same. But I know it's not.
Right.
But also, like, here's my always answer for country, and this might piss people off. Who's like the best musician or guitar player in like band and country? It's never, the musicianship is never there. Like if I listen to one artist and I listen to the next, the guitars kind of sound the same. It's the same twang.
Right.
It's the same chords and riffs. Get what I'm saying?
Yeah, I get it.
So like if you go to like rock or classic rock and then you go to listen to Prince, like, all right, that guy is a really good fucking musician, not just a singer.
Yeah.
When have you ever said that about country? Think about it.
I've thought about it. I once saw Chris Stapleton, who some would consider country, but he's more classic rock.
Yeah.
In the style of classic rock.
Yes, and I'll listen to Chris Stapleton.
Yes.
I got a few of his songs on my playlist.
Yeah.
He's awesome. But yes,
but
like Garth, I'd go see fucking Garth. 100%. I saw Darius Rucker, and I know, but to me, it was like, I'm going to see Hootie and Blowfish.
Yeah.
And he still plays that stuff because he knows.
Yeah.
But he played like classic rock too, like just covered. So like, I don't hate it, but also some of it's like,
It's like the pop. It's just like,
when they start rapping on it too, and I'm just like, come on, guys, like let's, So I don't, I like mostly everything. I just kind of do. I grew up in an anti-country house too.
Yeah.
So that's part of it. My mom hated it.
Well, your parents did a good job. That's how I'm raising my children.
Yeah, my parents. My parents from Eastern Montana. My dad likes it and likes the older style, but my mom fucking hated it. So I was raised in a turn that shit off. It's funny.
Well, that's all I have for today.
Cool, man. Well, I appreciate everybody listening. Next week I think we're gonna run the Killian.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
Next week, and because I think we're getting into Christmas break. There's some games that are just some
we'll cover them.
Yeah,
but we'll throw in that Killian interview. It's very good.
Yeah,
it's nice to catch up with him. Like I said, we'll get some. Kelly will get in here. I'll try to get some more other guys. We will. It's just managing their busy schedules just like everybody else. But a lot of them are still playing. So we'll make that happen. It's harder to do around the holidays. Time's limited, like I said, but we'll get some. I know people like the personal interviews, obviously, like the recaps and the analysis stuff. So we'll get a mix of both. But I appreciate everybody listening. Thank you to our sponsors for helping us out and enjoy. I'm glad you guys listen and hopefully you enjoy the episode.
Let's do it again. Let's do it again. Turn up the 10. Let's do it again. Let's do it again. Let's do it again. Let's do it again.